I felt compelled to make this video based on a text message I got today from a prominent national sports reporter in the United States asking me questions about the Olympic Stadium. The reason was that, of course, the Tampa Bay Rays cannot play in their stadium. And so he was inquiring as to what the renovations and money he read, or very quickly, mind you, was being spent on at the Olympic Stadium. And I quickly tried to put aside the frustration and anger that I, and I'm sure many Montrealers, feel in the incredibly irresponsible and really outlandish number of $870 million that's being spent on that building just to put a roof on it. So I had to explain to him, somebody who travels around North America, sees all the new venues, understands what fans and professional sports experienced in going to games is all about. I had to explain to him that this $870 million isn't being spent on concessions. It's not being spent on new seats. It's not being spent on attractions inside the stadium or a new scoreboard or different activations outside the stadium. No, it's going to just be spent on the roof. That's it. $870 million on a building that doesn't house any professional sports team, that can't house a concert because the acoustics are so awful in that cavernous structure. So much so that U2 had to come to Montreal a few years ago and build their own outdoor stadium rather than go and perform at the Olympic Stadium. And it just blew my mind, especially now in a role of partnerships and different sports business opportunities that I've been looking at recently, understanding that some of these pro sports teams in baseball, basketball, hockey, football are spending hundreds of millions of dollars just on upgrading their arenas to make them more of a destination, more of a family friendly, or more of an entertainment value type of place for people to go and frequent, and trying to explain to this guy that all $870 million is being spent to put on a roof on a building that's outdated, that has no tenant, and has no real prospects other than hosting maybe 5 or 6 sporting events a year in it. And he started to ask me, well, why? Why would they do that? And where's the public outrage? And that's what I don't understand, is why we don't have more outrage in Quebec. We had students marching for tuition fees being raised by, $1,000 or whatever it was a few years ago. But nobody seems to care about $870 million being spent on putting a roof on an outdated building that really, for all intents and purposes, should be blown up. And he started to ask me why that's the case. And I, basically said that, the Quebec government put out a few years ago what I think is propaganda in saying that they cannot blow up the building. And because it's too expensive to blow up. They gave an arbitrary, gigantic figure of what the demolition would cost because of the subway system, the metro that they have underneath. And it doesn't take into account the recouping of costs of recycling all the concrete, for example. It was a blown up figure, so if I can use that pun on purpose, in order to scare people into thinking that they have to preserve this place. Moreover, the tower is an attraction, and we understand that, and people love to go up the tower and down the tower and up the tower and down the tower and see a view of Montreal, and that's all fine and dandy. But to throw money after bad money, after bad money, after bad money into a structure that people are still paying money for from the 76 Olympics, and nobody's happy to go there. It's not an entertainment district. It's not an area that makes any sense whatsoever to house, events. It just boggles the mind. And I'm just still don't understand the lack of opposition, either on the municipal level, the provincial level, even the federal level, but local groups. Nobody seems to be advocating not to spend this money, there just doesn't seem to be the stomach for it. So whether the provincial government strong-armed opposition parties, or whether the general public was just in a malaise of not wanting to deal with this particular albatross, whatever the case may be, just think about that for a second. $870 million is being spent on just putting a roof on an outdated building with no tenant and no actual prospects either. There's no, Major League Baseball has already said there's no way that, the Olympic Stadium could ever house a professional baseball team long term. If you've ever been into one of the suites in Olympic Stadium, it's just so tacky and so outdated. And, you go into the media room and there's still phone jacks for like dial-up internet access, right? It's just, it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. And, it continues to be an embarrassment every time folks in Montreal, even outside of Montreal, even in the province, have to field any kind of question, inquiry, comment from anybody who just doesn't understand why this money is being spent and who it's being spent for, and who's benefiting from it. I'll tell you, we're not people who live here, that's for sure. So if you're in another area in North America and your city is spending money on a brand new infrastructure, count your lucky stars that it's not the situation that's happening here in Montreal, because this is an embarrassment, and it's a further indication that we'll never get any kind of new sports structure or anything. For those that wanted to see Taylor Swift in Montreal, well, yeah, you'll have to thank the folks that greenlit $870 million at the Olympic Stadium for that. Just a couple of thoughts on a night that really hit my frustration levels to, overload, and just felt like I had to vent here. Have a good one.